You're watching Faultlines. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. This is a very special edition of Faultlines as I document for you how 2025 is going down as a year where the world witnessed almost 36 conflicts that took more than 1 lakh lives. A year which started with an American president who famously said he would end wars in just 24 hours. And yet almost a year later, the conflicts that the world is witnessing has only grown. And peace deals look farther than what they ever did. And this edition of Faultlines tells you the most consequential conflicts of 2025. The biggest fault line, the India-Pakistan one, where nuclear-armed neighbors who fought several wars in the past. Well, in April this year, tensions between India and Pakistan flared up after the deadly Pahalgam terror attack, where 25 of the 26 victims were Hindus and were slaughtered for their religion. India launched Operation Sindoor, conducted airstrikes on 9 terror facilities, 4 in Pakistan, 5 in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The conflict lasted 4 days, after which India ended the assault on Pakistani assets after achieving its core objectives. Listen in to what the Prime Minister and Air Chief Marshal said on the victory of Indian Armed Forces.
हमारी सेना ने वो करके दिखाया जो कई दशकों तक कभी हुआ नहीं था। सैकड़ों किलोमीटर दुश्मन की धरती पर घुस करके आतंकी हेडक्वार्टर्स को मिट्टी में मिला दिया। आतंकी इमारतों को खंडहर बना दिया। पाकिस्तान की नींद अभी भी उड़ी हुई है।
Long-range weapons were used with good precision and, pan front, about 1,200 kilometers of border front and deep inside enemy territory up to almost 200 plus kilometers inside. We were able to strike. We were able to strike with precision, with minimal collateral, trying our best not to have any casualties from civilian side. And we were able to bring them to their knees in, actually speaking, one night of intensive operations.
Let me now decode for you how India demolished Pakistani assets and brought the country on its knees, as our Air Chief Marshal just told you. First and foremost, 9 major terror launch pads in both Pakistan and POK were eliminated. More importantly, cross-border precision strikes that India demonstrated during Operation Sindoor, that came to fore. There was a clear pattern and an effort to shift from deterrence to direct action. That's the single biggest message that came out here, that when there will be an attack, India will respond. Remember, we've also changed the template as well. Any attack will now be treated as an act of war. Equal punishment both for terrorists and their sponsors. No distinction whatsoever. You fund, you sponsor terrorism against India, New Delhi will respond in the same manner. And lastly, India's air defense superiority was displayed during those 4 days of Operation Sindoor, which, viewers, is still underway, even as multiple high-profile terrorists were neutralized in this operation. That is the single biggest aspect of Operation Sindoor. Well, war clouds looming large over South America. We now tell you the other conflict of 2025 after Donald Trump's repeated threats to Venezuelan dictator Maduro, seizing and sanctioning Venezuelan oil tankers, blowing up multiple Venezuelan boats, and in Donald Trump's words, encircling the nation with the largest armada of fleet in South America. Well, what's at the heart of this entire issue? And is it really going to blow up into a full-fledged war? This report tells you, is it about drugs, is it about oil, or is it about much more than that? Take a look.
confrontation at sea and diplomacy on the brink. As the year draws to a close, tensions between the United States and Venezuela have surged to levels not seen in decades, casting a long shadow over global oil markets and international relations. In the last few weeks, US forces have seized multiple oil tankers, including one carrying nearly 2 million barrels of Venezuelan crude, under a sweeping blockade ordered by US President Donald Trump, aimed at cutting off Caracas's lifeblood, oil revenues. The Maduro government has blasted the actions as international piracy, promising to take the dispute to the UN. Oil prices briefly spiked on global markets a few days ago, reflecting fears that disruption to Venezuelan exports, long a key source of heavy crude, could ripple worldwide. This sharp confrontation sits atop a broader backdrop: years of deteriorating US-Venezuela ties. Since the 2019 political standoff over President Nicolas Maduro's contested rule, Washington has steadily tightened sanctions, hitting Venezuelan officials and oil sector entities in an apparent bid to force political change. Venezuela, sitting atop some of the largest known oil reserves in the world, has been hit hardest by these measures, with export volumes plunging and Caracas increasingly reliant on clandestine shipping networks. What began as financial and diplomatic pressure has now spilled into the open waters and into deadly conflict. US forces have conducted numerous strikes on vessels they say are linked to drug and narcotics networks, resulting in scores of deaths, a toll that continues to spark debate in Washington and beyond. As 2025 ends, uncertainty only builds on both sides of the Caribbean. Is this a decisive tightening of sanctions or a road toward a wider confrontation?
The other global flashpoint, Russia-Ukraine conflict, it continued in 2025. Another year, another string of missed opportunities and failed chances to reach a peace deal. From practically throwing Zelensky out of the Oval Office to hosting Putin for the first time on American soil in a decade, to threatening India, which buys Russian oil and gas, Donald Trump has done everything to come good on his 24-hour promise. But that's not the case. Almost 4 years into the deadliest conflict in Europe since Second World War, peace is still elusive. The conflict on Europe's eastern borders is at a stalemate. Russia now controls almost a fifth of Ukraine. There are talks, talks and talks. That's what 2025 saw. From Berlin to Brussels, from American involvement to a Turkish push, it has yielded nothing. Let me now tell you the big moments on the battlefield, because this is something that isn't going anywhere. And let's tell you why the battlefield moments tell you this war is far from over. First and foremost, Russia grinds forward in the east. That tells you that the momentum, the military momentum, is right now with the Russian forces, and they are looking to build on it. This year, Russia took about 4,700 square kilometers of additional territory. Now, Russia says it's 6,000 kilometers, but independent experts say it's about 4,700. That's very significant. That also tells you that they are completely focused on the eastern belt only. There were earlier in the war, there were efforts to take some parts of the northern parts of Ukraine. That isn't the case anymore. Russian forces are focused only on the eastern belt, where almost twice the size of Moscow has already been taken so far. Little sign that Kremlin is willing to compromise. They've consolidated their position. They've gone out from the northern parts of Ukraine. They want parts of eastern Ukraine that they're very clear about, even as Donbass remains the biggest bone of contention. Zelensky says that if Donbass is on the table, then there is no peace deal on the table. As far as Russia is concerned, they're very clear. This is something that they're not going to relent on. Let me now get you some of the key weaponry that was on display as the Russia-Ukraine war continues to grind on. Most importantly, the Shahid kamikaze drones. These were ones that were very instrumental for Russia, as it provided it maximum damage by crashing deep inside enemy targets. This was also part of the arrangement that Russia had with Iran. And soon after, Russia even started to produce and manufacture Shahid drones on its own as well. It has its own factory now and maximum damage caused by that. Next up are the short-range ballistic missiles that Russia has used, Iskander-M ballistic missiles, short-range, and production has been ramped up by Russia. They're very clear that this is the weaponry that is causing maximum damage and maximum efforts to move forward further inside Ukraine. Next up is the drones that have been used, these are the cheap drones that can be made at less than $1,000. Don't forget, Russian economy is now a war economy. Everything is funding the war machinery, and they are looking at ways to make this cheaper. And these set of drones provide just that. Armed with the repurposed mortar or artillery shells, they are both fast as well as maneuverable. That is most important, because they've also been learning. Remember, this is a war that's now going to complete 4 years in February 2026. They've been learning, and these are the lessons on the battlefield as well. Next up, let's get you now Ukraine's arsenal, which is essentially the American arsenal that is there. America, NATO, they've been the one backing Ukraine completely, and you can see that the tactical missile system that has come in place, something that has helped Ukraine very significantly. These are long-range variants, again, as I said, supplied by the US, and have played a major role in hitting deep inside Russian defense systems. Those Black Sea assaults that have happened, a lot of them is due to this set of arsenal that's happened. Next is the high mobility artillery rocket system, again supplied by America since 2022. America has been committed to provide and help Ukraine more during the Biden era than during the Trump era, but nevertheless the military partnership remains, and these are important there. Russia considers this to be Russian in terms of high priority areas and targets that have been impacted there. Next, let's get you Patriot missiles, another US key and marquee defense equipment that is being used by Ukraine. These are surface to air missile system, primarily used as defensive system, and they have reports of them actually downing Russian warplanes. The Patriot missiles have actually had a huge impact on the Russian Air Force in the last 1 year, more so in the last 18 months or so, all of it due to Patriot missiles. And how much of that will continue in 2026, how much of that weaponry Ukraine will continue to get, is the larger question that we are talking about. Well, viewers, as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned, there is no end in sight and no breakthrough whatsoever possible, as Ukraine is very clear it is not willing to cede any territory. This is the part that we wanted to tell you about, the Donbas region, where Russia says it is very clear that this is the area that it wants to take. It includes Donetsk, Luhansk, all of that, which is a deal breaker as far as Zelensky is concerned. How long will this remain the situation? Well, no one knows. Most certainly, people sitting in Brussels have no clue whatsoever. All right, turning attention now to what is a centuries-old dispute, boiled into one of the deadliest conflicts of this year. As Thailand and Cambodia witnessed heavy artillery exchanges all along their 800-kilometer border. There were intense close-quarter battles as well between the Thai and Cambodian soldiers. It erupted in July this year as reports of fighting continue to come to light from forested regions near Laos to the coastal provinces of the Gulf of Thailand. That tells you the entire stretch remains volatile. The truce brokered by Donald Trump fell apart, while talks are on for a more permanent ceasefire than the one hastily agreed upon by both parties after Donald Trump threatened, well, what else but tariff hikes. The underlying issues remain unresolved. Listen in to the Chinese special envoy about the efforts being made to end the conflict that are still underway, but no permanent solution is being found right now. Even as Malaysia, which is the chair of ASEAN, brokered the July peace, is trying to salvage the situation to ensure that this doesn't become a larger issue where ASEAN will have to probably weigh in a bigger manner. Listen in to those sound bites.
It is my hope that this special meeting will renew our efforts for a return to stability in the affected areas. ASEAN must do whatever it is necessary to maintain regional peace and stability. Our goal goes beyond de-escalating the tension. We must intensify trust building among the conflicting parties and provide the horizons for dialogue despite the prevailing differences.
Well, lakhs of civilians on both sides have been displaced and it seems limited peace options remain on the table. Thailand carried out massive airstrikes on Cambodian military positions. Cambodia continues to use drones to drop bombs on Thai bases and firing rockets at civilian areas. This war is far from over, even as meetings continue to take place. On that note, a very quick break. We come back and tell you the other conflicts of 2025. As 2025 draws to a close, the Israel-Iran war stands out as one of the most dangerous flashpoints of this year. What began as shadow warfare spilled into direct strikes, with Israel hitting Iranian military and nuclear-linked sites. Iran responding with waves of missiles and drones. The conflict reshaped regional calculations, raised fears of a wider war. A defining moment came with the deployment of America's B-2 bombers, a stark reminder of American ability to strike hardened targets deep underground. The war has not just altered battle lines, but the balance of deterrence in West Asia. Here's a special report that tells you how the B-2 bombers changed the course of the war.
The bombers that never appeared on radar but changed everything. In the darkest hours of the Israel-Iran war, when missile barrages lit up Middle Eastern skies and diplomacy collapsed, the balance of power shifted. Not with a declaration, but with silence. High above, nearly invisible to air defenses, the B-2 spirit entered the equation. One of America's most secretive weapons, designed for one purpose: to strike when no one else can. As Israel and Iran traded blows, missiles, drones and cyber attacks, fortified underground facilities became Tehran's shield. Nuclear infrastructure buried deep, command centers thought untouchable. Until the B-2 changed the rules. Carrying massive bunker buster bombs, the stealth bombers struck hardened targets across Iran. Facilities conventional aircraft could not reach. No warning, no interception, just impact. Military analysts say the strikes crippled Iran's ability to sustain escalation, disrupting command networks, weapon stockpiles, and underground launch systems. For Israel, it was a strategic turning point. For Iran, a stark message: there are no safe sanctuaries. The B-2's presence didn't just destroy targets, it restored deterrence. Tehran scaled back direct attacks, proxy activity slowed, the tempo of war changed almost overnight. The Israel-Iran war will be remembered for missiles and drones, but it may ultimately be defined by bombers no one saw until it was too late.
Let's get you more details about the Middle East war, where the world celebrated the end of the Israel-Hamas war that grinded on after Hamas's atrocious October 7 attack on Israel. Ceasefire is in effect in Gaza. But is there a peace that is there? No. A peace deal isn't there on the table because it seems like a very tall order. On 10th of October, 2 years after the Israel-Hamas conflict began, some sort of a ceasefire finally took effect. There have been multiple reports, however, of violation of those terms. There were big photo ops that took place in Egypt, but on ground, the situation continues to remain volatile. Now, Palestinians say 400 people have been killed since the ceasefire. That's the Palestinian version. Israel has accused Hamas of breaching the agreed terms, again pointing to the fact that things hang by a thread there. Because amidst this, no one knows whether the next phase of the agreed peace deal will actually happen or not, because that's when long-term solutions will come into place. But there are many obstacles. Israel stipulates that terrorist organization Hamas must give up all its arms, surrender power to a civilian transitional authority. Now, that's a deal breaker for Hamas. That won't happen. Now, on the Israeli side, there's an expectation that even as an international stabilization force is to be deployed in Gaza, Israel is supposed to fully withdraw from Gaza. That won't happen till Hamas completely gives up arms. It's a chicken and egg situation. It isn't going to happen. Let me now tell you what all, as far as the war is concerned, has happened. Let's tell you how fragile the truce right now in Gaza is. As I said, 400 people have been killed is what the Palestinian health authorities say since the 10th of October, when the ceasefire actually came into effect. Reports of Israel withholding essential aid are coming to light. Again, these are reports that Israel has completely rejected, even as there are some reports that indicate that there have been deep incursions by Hamas that has taken place, several of those. And that tells you that this remains very, very volatile. Hamas has tried to reclaim territories within Gaza. Here, the condition for second phase of the ceasefire is that Hamas should completely, surrender arms, surrender to a civilian authority, and look at what is happening. It is looking to reclaim territories. Clearly, this is a situation that remains extremely volatile and is unlikely to have some sort of a long-term solution immediately. Big global flashpoint this year was also the ongoing civil war in war-torn Sudan. Viewers, it is ranked first in list of the top 10 crises the world cannot ignore. And as things stand, Sudan has been engulfed in turmoil since 2019 coup that overthrew the brutal dictator Omar al-Bashir by the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces that Bashir himself had created from an insurgent group called Janjaweed. Janjaweed had conducted the most horrific genocide on non-Arab communities since 2003. The power struggle between these two factions grew to a military assault between the two forces, and the deadly clashes between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces, or the RSF, have remained commonplace now, dragging the civil war into now its third year and the worst displacement crisis the world has witnessed anywhere in recent times. The spillover of fighting from the capital Khartoum has enveloped the entirety of Sudan into flames of war. What's likely is that the two sides have entrenched their areas further. They've fortified what they now own. The SAF deepening its presence in the northeast and central Sudan, and RSF a very dominant force in the entire Darfur region. What many are suspecting, just as South Sudan split, there is a real possibility that these two divisions could lead to permanent division of Sudan. Ironically, the country with one of the largest gold deposits, also now the largest number of people without food. Global agencies fear half of Sudan doesn't have food, even as almost the entire world is not talking about it. On that note, we come to an end of this very special edition of Faultlines. Viewers, 2025 was a year of global conflict. Here's hoping that the world is able to address some of these fault lines in 2026, not by quick fixes, but with thought-through peace frameworks that survive small flare-ups. Thank you so much for watching this special edition.